Well, welcome everybody. I'm Ray Harwood. I am, in some places known as the HOA Coach. In some places, I'm known as president of my homeowners association. And just about wherever I go, I'm someone that tries to help people out. And that's one of the reasons that we're here today. Let me briefly explain who we have on the panel currently and who we're hoping to have here momentarily. From the Sun City, Texas Community Association, we've got Katie Newnam, who is the Director of Administration and Human Resources, I understand. We also have Dennis Wilson, who is the Vice President of that association. And also on the panel with us, but kind of in the background, Jim Romine, who is their executive director. They're the ones that have sort of posed the question that we're going to talk about this morning. I also have David Whitaker, who is an up and coming community manager. I guess you probably are a community manager, but trying to get your certification. And David and I go way back, because he and I are both members of the National Association of Parliamentarians. And I now see Connie Morrow has joined us. Connie, whenever you're ready, go ahead and crank up your video and we'll introduce you briefly.
There it is.
There
Hi.
you are. Hi, Connie. Thanks for joining.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much for hosting.
Absolutely. So Connie is an active participant on the Community Association Institute website. The forum, as I mentioned, owns several condos in several states and has been on the board of directors for many of them. And as a frequent contributor, she's well respected on that CAI forum. And I appreciate Connie for being here. I'm also looking for David Norton, who will be here hopefully shortly. He was on a little bit earlier and might be having technical difficulties. He is a community manager, runs a company called Spectrum Management Associates, and he's up in Sedona, Arizona, not too far from where I am. I'm just west of Phoenix. And so hopefully we'll have the entire panel here ready soon. But so we're going to have what I'm hoping to be, 20 or 30 minutes of discussion around the question really that has been, brought forth. Let's just call it brought forth by Dennis. And I'll just summarize it here. And basically what I've got written, which, took me a few minutes to get it in a format that I think we can all use. How would you structure a leadership council that would identify, mentor, and encourage leadership for your communities in a volunteer capacity? And as I spoke earlier with Katie and Dennis, I mentioned that, that they mentioned that they have a fairly large association. And I said, my own association is only 345. Like many smaller associations, we just have trouble getting people to volunteer. But I'll let Katie describe sort of the size of their organization and how many people they really do have. And then we'll get Dennis to discuss kind of what his real need is for kind of bringing up new volunteers and so forth. So Katie, tell us some more.
Thank you. And thank you again, Ray, for hosting this for us. We appreciate it. We work for Sun City, Texas Community Association. We're here in Georgetown, Texas, just north of Austin. Just celebrated our 25th anniversary. So we have been around for a little while. We currently have about 8,700 homes. We are an active adult community. We are still under the developer control as they are still building. We will probably have over 10,000 homes when it's all said and done. So roughly 18 to 20,000 folks in our community. That's bigger than a lot of towns in Texas. So when people don't understand what we do for a living, I kind of explained it that we are like running a small city. We have a city council with our board of directors, and we have Jim Romine as our city manager, if you will, as our executive director. And with that, we have a lot of volunteers, including some of our board members. As I mentioned, we're under developer control, so the developer still does have 3 developer members. But we have 4 resident volunteers, directors who are elected every year for 2-year terms. In addition to that, we have various committees that help advise our board. Right now we have 9 committees, so we have almost 100 volunteers just on our committees that help do CA business, do some of the legwork for the board to help them make decisions regarding policies, procedures, and how we run the association. In addition to that, we also have volunteers for our Citizens on Patrol. There's almost 200 volunteers that get in a car and go volunteer time to drive around the community, make sure they don't see anything suspicious. We have a neighborhood rep program that's got hundreds of volunteers that help disseminate information and communicate and have parties for our community. So we absolutely depend upon volunteers to run our association. We could not do what we do. Even with our staff of 200, we'd have to triple that amount of staff to be able to do what we do for our association. So Dennis came up with a great idea of, not only how do we continue to have those great volunteers serving our community, and we're lucky, a lot of almost all of our residents are retired. So they have the amount of time to be able to dedicate to our community and do that, but able to retain that talent and to continue to get it as we have new people move in. And so with that, I'll kind of give it over to Dennis Wilson, our vice president. He's been on our board for 6 years, I believe now. Very talented. 4? Is it 4? I thought it was
feels
4.
like 6.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It feels like 6.
But I'll turn it over to Dennis. He actually came up with this great idea that we talked about as some staff a little bit ago, and wanted to reach out to our sister communities out there in the country to say, what do you all do? How would you, put together a group like this? And with that, Dennis, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Katie. And
Yes,
thank
sir.
you, Ray, also for organizing this. It's, I think, a great opportunity for all of us to kind of explore this idea. And everybody who's watching, I hope that you have some questions later on. I've been involved with leadership for 11 years now. I started, my wife and I moved here in 2010, and about 2 weeks after I landed, I became the co-rep for my neighborhood. And the structure that we have is that each neighborhood has a leadership team that kind of oversees that neighborhood. I did that for 2.5 years, and then I was I was brought into the neighborhood rep organization that kind of oversees all the neighborhoods in our community. So our structure is pretty broad compared to what you were talking about, Ray, having only 300 plus homes. But it's important. We're going to have, we probably have close to 17,000 people here now. We're going to have close to 18,000, 19,000 people when we're totally built out. So having this structure is really important. We have 55 plus clubs, and they all have their own leadership. So you can see that when you start looking at the issue that we have a tremendous amount of volunteers. I think, Katie, we will have over 1,000 volunteers if you add all the clubs up. That keep things rolling here. Jim and Katie and company do a great job of managing the business of Sun City, Texas. But the residents, the volunteers, do a really good job of keeping the daily activities going and keeping us a vibrant and active community. But as I have gone through my board years, I've realized that we've got a really good structure in terms of our committees. We have a nominating committee who does a great job of interviewing, going out and promoting and interviewing residents who want to be on a specific committee. And then they interview them. They go through a selection process. They bring those selections to the board, and then we decide who's going to actually get the jobs. And that's a great program. Problem that I'm seeing as we grow, and 25 years old now, or 25 years young, however you want to look at it, we want to continue on, and this whole structure needs to continue on in terms of volunteers. My concern was we need to really make sure that we're training, promoting, mentoring residents to be volunteers. Recently, about 5 years ago, I started a thing called the new Neighbor Roundup, where every quarter we invite new residents to come in and get an orientation to our community. And over the years, I'm seeing that there's fewer and fewer residents moving in that really have this volunteerism in their being. And that is a concern, and it has been a concern to me, that we're not seeing as many people wanting to volunteer as we have in the past. So what can we do as a community to reach out to those people and show them the importance of residents being an active part, or taking an active role in managing and running the activities that go on in the community. So that's kind of where this came from. And I don't have the answers, but I certainly do want to explore this avenue down the road here.
Good. Thanks, Katie and Dennis. Good to know more about your association and what it is you're really looking for. I will take one brief side moment here to introduce Dave Norton, who was having a couple of technical difficulties, but now is with us good. And so Dave and Connie, really as some experienced community managers, what experience do you guys have in terms of large organizations or mid-range? I know here in the Phoenix area, up in a community called Surprise, there's about a 5,000 member community, and I know they have a lot of volunteers and so forth. And I was trying to attract a couple of them to attend this, but they've had some other commitments today. So Dave, give us a little overview for you and introduce yourself briefly and tell us your experience in an area like this. There you go.
Hi, I'm Dave, and I don't have any large communities. I have a portfolio of multiple communities. The biggest one is 205. There are no big communities in Sedona, fortunately. And I've been in business since 2009. Stumbled into it as a board member in an association that I own property in as a treasurer, and the management company just couldn't get us the financial reports. Even sitting in the manager's office, they couldn't give us the financials, and later we found out why, because they were charging us for things that were not in the contract. Surprise, surprise. So terminated that, and a couple of us looked at each other and said, hey, we're smart enough to do this. So we did. And then my partner in crime, 2 weeks later, sold her house for cash and said, I'm done, I'm out of here. So that left me and my wife. And then we had another 2 people that decided they wanted to join us, but they only wanted to make money and they didn't want to provide service. So that relationship ended rather soon.
Right.
And so it's just the 2 of us now, and we're busy.
Cool.
And we've got nearly 700 homeowners that we babysit every day. And we do all the financials, all the meetings, all the everything. And my wife does all the posting of bills and writing checks, and I do everything else. And it's been working.
Yeah, good. I've vacationed a couple of times up in the Sedona area, and know that it's a lot of small communities, but there are a lot of new communities up there as well.
It's mostly custom homes.
Sure.
And I don't have any that have all these nominating committees and all that stuff. We just don't have any of that. I don't have any clubhouses. I have had communities with pools, don't have them anymore. But still no clubhouses, no big organized anything. It's just not that kind of an area. So
sure. Connie, chime in here a little bit about the condos that you've been associated with, and anything else that you've had some involvement with as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dave, it's so good to see you.
yes.
By the way.
Connie and I go back and forth all the time with emails and stuff, and we've had a very, very good working relationship on here. And I've threatened her someday I'm going to come to Florida and knock on her door, but haven't done that
and
yet.
we'll go find grouper sandwich because grouper is king around here. Oh, darn, I just dropped my note. Okay, are you there? Did I lose you? No, there we are.
We're here. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm dropping things. My background, I've had a lot of experience with the kind of things that you're looking for. But not in a Sun City kind of model. My parents, my dad was in the military, so I'm a military brat, and I'm retired. I'm a retired military officer. So, I spent 20 some years as an adult living in communities that were created by the Department of Defense. Every Army installation, every Air Force base, every Navy base that you find, there are communities, and they're living in military family housing. And the challenge today, most of that housing has been contracted out. So the houses now belong to a corporation. They're managed by a corporation, while the military members are living in them. But one of the things that typifies all those military communities is that there is a civic organization that is made up by the people who live in those communities. And so it's kind of a hybrid of a homeowner association model or a condominium association model, in that they in fact vote or appoint from within themselves to create a board and to generate interest in volunteers and committees for social activities and things like that. And those communities are huge. Some of them are in the thousands. Since I retired, and of course, as a part of my active duty living is when I owned condominiums, and my husband, God bless him, used to say that if I asked for one more bathroom, I couldn't have it because I already had 6 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms. And so just depended on where I was living. I have not lived in a condominium association that was the size of what you're talking about in Sun City, but I have been active in my adult life in civic politics. And even here on the island, we live on a little island that's only 8 miles long now in the Gulf of Mexico. Our city only has 783 residents, okay, so voters. So, I'm living in a city that is the size of my last command. So, but nonetheless, we do have civic organizations. And there are models for civic organizations that are out there that are absolutely excellent. And I can think of 2 of them right off the top of my head. In Arlington, Virginia, I owned a home that was in a condominium, a high rise on a hill in Arlington, Virginia, and the Arlington Ridge Association was a civic organization that was created by volunteers, and they interface with the elected officials in the city and in the county to articulate and support and help bring information forward to the elected officials. There's another group that's active in Arlington that I was very impressed with, and we supported them. And it was a group of businessmen who sponsored individuals in their early 20s who were interested in participating in business and growing as individuals. And they would set up mentoring sessions, and young people could spend a day with the chief of police, for instance. So right off the bat, those are my first 2 touch points for memory. And the third would be to ask if you have contacted any of the other Sun City organizations. I have dear friends who live in a Sun City in New Mexico, and then I also have friends that live in the Sun City here in the Central Florida. And so my question would be, has anybody contacted them to see if they have a model or something that you could model yourself against? Any
Katie or
questions?
Dennis, who have you already contacted and tried to get some help through?
Actually, no one. I mean, it was really Katie. This last reach out was the first time that Katie has gone out, or that we've gone out to ask this question. And I don't know, Katie, have we heard anything from other Sun cities
No, we reached out through the HOA, and this is obviously how we got this group together, and hoped that some of our sister communities would be willing to participate. And as I know, a lot of folks are busy, especially this time of year, didn't get those results back from some of the larger Sun cities. Over the years, we definitely have worked with those groups to see, obviously, we're very similar in what we offer and our makeup and what we look like and what we do as a community association. So we've definitely over the years have reached out to those different communities, visited those communities and know those managers. But we kind of do the same thing. So what's kind of was reaching out to different groups to see if there's something that you all do different than maybe a larger Sun City type of community.
Well, and the point is just now dawning in my head that the place up here in Surprise that's about 5,000 is also called Sun City. And I did not really recognize that.
It's the same, yeah.
It's the same developer, I assume. Okay. Well, interesting. You know, from a small HOA perspective, 345 members, I know I'm a bit of an unusual president of an association of this size. Very, very often, you know, what I'm told from other community managers and my experience in talking to other HOA leaders is that, well, you know, we go to the board meeting, we get the packet and we do that. And then we're sort of done with it. We let the community manager manage from there. But, you know, I've got a stack of business cards with my name and phone number and email address. And every time I'm out and about looking at things and so forth, and I run into people, I hand them my card and go, look, if you got any questions, you know, you should contact our community manager, but always feel free to contact me. And, you know, I will help you. And I've helped people, you know, on the, I tell them very much up front, I'm going to help you as an individual, not as a member of the board, but I'll help you as an individual to get your architectural request in. Or I'll tell you who within the city you should probably call for the problem that you're having. And so I really see that as sort of, you know, being out there with your community and, you know, just having the one-on-one conversations with individuals and maybe in a community your size that is going to a couple of the club meetings and going, you know, hi, I'm Dennis and I'm vice president or Katie or whoever, and just going, you know, we're you know, hoping that you would also volunteer to do things for us, with us and for your community. And, you know, kind of, I won't say drag them in, but sort of invite them in and lure them in to at least investigating the possibilities. And I think, as we all know, it's not for everybody. There's some people who just want to live in their little quiet home and you know, pet the cat and the dog and watch TV. But there are many people who really are, you know, like me. I tell people I'm semi-retired, but I'm busier now than I ever was when I was actually employed by people. And so it's because I'm out there and I want to help people. And that really is, you know, what I hear from people who are active on the CAI exchange forum as well. We do have the occasional homeowner that comes in that just has a question. I just want to ask my question. What the heck is going on here? And what can I do to fix this? Because they're frustrated. But most of the people who participate, you know, Dave and Connie and David and myself are really there because, you know, we want to help other people. And I think that really does sort of help you from there. The other thing that I will say that I've done for my own HOA is that I've created a couple of YouTube videos. I've got one that really explains the entire reserve study that we did in 2019. I kind of went through it section by section. And I know that, you know, most people are, I don't even want to know what a reserve study is. But I think having those sorts of educational resources out there for people may, in fact, attract people that you don't know that you could need. You may find people who are good with either videography or editing of videos and could put together educational things for the rest of your community, and that sort of thing. I'll mention the other sort of last point that I'll make is when I was with Ascension Health, I was at Carondelet Health Network down in Tucson for 6 years. And the CEO of Ascension Health said, the only way we really reach people is by saying things 7 times, 7 ways. And he was kind of kidding, but he wasn't. He said, look, you've got to put it in a newsletter because some people want to read it on paper. You've got to put it out in an email because some people only read their email. You've got to put it out on social media because some people only look at social media. You've got to put it out on your YouTube. And he said, seriously, if we've got something serious to tell our people or to ask our people, we can't just go, well, I sent you the email, didn't you get it?
Yeah.
So that's my 2.5 cents. David Whitaker, you've had a lot of experience really working with people in the National Association of Parliamentarians, where we're also a volunteer group. And I know there's a certain amount of recruitment effort there that may be applicable. And I know you're new to the community manager role and have ideas perhaps about how the two of them work together. Why don't you give us your thoughts there for a moment?
Thanks, Ray. First, let me say I'm a little fanboy at the moment because I have seen Connie and Dave's posts everywhere. And so I feel like it's a movie star thing and I'm just kind of sitting in the corner taking pictures. I do want to say to you that the first point I want to make is it sounds like Sun City is really doing all of the things that we at NAP are doing at a national level. You are fostering community. You are offering training opportunities. You are mentoring. You have an orientation. I have now created something called Wilson's Rule for Involvement, which is training, orientation, and mentoring. As he said earlier, I think it's a fantastic model in that you have 9 active committees. Is almost flabbergasted by that number, that it's staffed and working. Identifying lurkers is my first point to you. I want to give a shout out to one of our attendees, Brian Pelkey, who is a member of the Florida Association of Parliamentarians, who is with us today. And I would have never known that there were other NAP members interested in this particular line of parliamentary work had we not had a community ourselves. So I think the first thing you need to do is find those lurkers in whatever community setting you can, whether it be a party or a reception or an orientation. There was a continuous improvement specialist in the 1940s named W. Edwards Deming. And Deming's philosophy of CQI was to drive out fear. The less people were afraid, the more likely they were to engage in whatever it was you were doing. People hate parliamentary procedure because it's unfair. You got to talk to the chair. You can't just moan about old Myrtle's trash cans at an annual meeting. And I get that. But as we train officers and even members about what a meeting should look like and what's an agenda and how do you seek recognition, officer training at the very basic level. What does the secretary do with minutes? Well, after the Florida incident with the collapse and the release of those HOA minutes, that secretary was woefully uneducated because one only creates in the minutes what was done and never what was said. And if they had done that, I think that it would have been a different view of the association versus he angrily responded and she stormed out and all that sort of thing. So identifying lurkers, driving out fear through education, training opportunities. I'm thrilled you have a nominating committee. I work for a management company. We have 34 HOAs. Our largest is 260. Most of them have nominating committees. None of them are filled. None of them are working. We take nominations from the floor. It's the same folks. Unless the bylaws say otherwise, declared by acclamation, you have a 6-minute annual meeting and you go on for the next year. I wish I had members who would be engaged. And as we develop our communities here at Capstone, we have envisioned with several of our boards who are, I don't want to say savvy, but I think you all know that there are some boards of directors that need a lot of hand-holding and some that are very savvy about things. You get a couple of those groups that are savvy and you use what they do as the model to train everybody else. In NAP, the National Association of Parliamentarians, to which Ray and Brian and I belong, our current effort is at orientation at the unit level, which is where Ray is a president, at a local level that belongs to a state association that then belongs to the national association. But we need to get down to the folks who are members, not credentialed, not teaching, but are here to learn. And we need to ask them what they want and then teach it to them. I think my last point in this conversation is you have done that, it appears. How you can, I can't even get my head around 10,000 homes. I can't, I just, I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have about 390,000 people here, about 1 million in the 3-county triad area, but there's nothing like that here, nothing. Brookberry Farms is the biggest, and I think it's maybe 600, and people balked at that. So I'm thrilled for you that you do it so well. I'm a bit in awe and very respectful of the work that you must do, knowing you know what I do here with 32 HOAs and maybe 1,000 units total. I think the Honorable Gentleman, Mr. Norton, can probably say the same thing. You know, you get 200 folks total in your portfolio, and it's easier to talk to them rather than structure things. But those are my things. I want to leave you with one other thing. A fairly popular trainer in our circles, a lady named Colette Trohan, said once that committees start with questions to be answered and boards start with a decision to be made. I think Sun City is doing that. And in that you have that built into your general framework, I think you're already successful. I think the rest of us need to just remember to create a good sense of community so that you can find those lurkers who want to help but don't know how. Offer training opportunities about officer positions, committee chairman, etc., and mentoring. It's the one thing I have said in every presentation I've ever given in NAP. Brian Pelkey can attest to this because he's been at a couple of mine. Find a mentor, and find another one, because they are the people who will help you develop into the person that you want to be. The 5 mentors I claim that claim me in NAP are currently all on our board of directors. And so I would not have the opportunities I've had there if it weren't for mentors who were genuinely interested in teaching. And I think everybody here, or at least my sense of the panel, is that you all are with me. You want to teach so others can do. And Ray, I think that's my shtick.
Cool, good. Yeah, good points there, David or Dave.
Yeah, I want to comment on something that David said, the term lurkers. That is a real challenge. In my associations, I deal with a lot of retired CEOs, and they have a wealth of knowledge, but they're busy, and most of them are retired, but they are a gold mine of information. If you can, you know, talk it out of them. And, you know, I've got people in my associations that own international companies. They're the owners. And I've got the people that are the CFOs of these huge companies that have retired. Well, they know exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm slowly getting some of those to come out of the darkness and serve as treasurer. There is no better treasurer than someone that's used to dealing with multi-million-dollar accounts, and they know exactly what they're doing. So they don't need training. They can help their board. But almost every week I find another person that's got skills that I didn't know were out there. And I've got some associations I'm going, please, I need board candidates, folks. You need to serve your association. Please submit an application. I get one. Yeah, for a 5-member board. Mm-hmm. So what do? There's the write-ins on the ballot, but no one's going to put a name in because, hey, I don't want to serve. I've tried to make it easy for them to serve because they don't really have to do much. You know, all our accounting is all computerized, and they can review the reports, but they don't have to physically do anything. And some of them are stuck on the old model of, well, if I'm the treasurer, I got to do the books and pay the bills and stuff. And no, you don't have to do any of that stuff. I've taken care of all that burden for you. And they still can't get them to come forward and say, yes, I'll serve. So
Dennis, did you have a
Yeah,
comment?
And David, good input. Dave, good input. One of my visions for this was we have a brain trust here. We have residents who have been part of committees who have done an excellent job. We've had board members that have done an excellent job. And after a while, you get tired, you get burned out. So they leave. Well, I don't think we want to lose that brain trust. I think that was my thinking here, is that the leadership council would bring those that want to take part of this and share with everybody else what their ideas or thoughts are, what their vision for the future is. We all have kind of a vision of where we'd like to go. Well, we share that and then take those thoughts and find some way of putting together a training program, a mentoring program, a marketing program, whatever, to encourage other residents to take part. And maybe the leadership council would develop a vision and a strategy, and then you'd have maybe a leadership forum group who would put together a presentation that would be developed for the residents to see how things work within the community. A lot of residents come here, and they come here to retire. They come here to play pickleball or tennis or whatever, golf or whatever else they want to do, and they don't want to think about working. But if we can present to them the value behind, like you talk about, Dave, the minds that you have in your community. If you can take those ideas and put them into managing the community from a resident point of view, I think you got a real winner there. So,
Well, and a couple of points I think that are well brought up that I want to just solidify for a moment. And one is that I think if you're going to create this leadership council, or have you already created a leadership council? Or okay, so
just an idea.
Sure. So if you create something that you call essentially a leadership council, which is sort of an adjunct to the formal decision-making process of the boards and so forth. One of the first things that I really recommend is that I wouldn't call them programs, but initiatives or something that you at least set out to do, or goals. One of those is mentor identification, people who you know in your community that are already serving, who may or may not be looking to leave and go somewhere else, but would be a good mentor and create a bit of a mentorship program even. So some people are, maybe out there, maybe not many, but some people are out there thinking, gosh, I would volunteer, but I don't know what to do. And if they know there's a mentorship program, they may be more likely than to join up with you. The other thing that I would sort of put out there as a goal, or at least some thought, is to let all of your current leaders know that in any good organization, and your CEOs of major companies should know this, or maybe they don't if they've been CEO forever, is succession planning is a big deal. I don't care where you are, if you are president of the United States, if you are president of a small company, or anything in between. In general, we're not going to be here forever. And so who's going to take the reins after me? And you can either go, when I'm gone, and you guys deal with it. Or, as most of us who've been involved with companies, that's sort of my baby, and I want my baby to grow up to be a teenager and into an adulthood. And so I want to make sure that there are good parents and good figures along the way helping them out. I'll also mention we've got a couple of things in the Q&A kind of related. Brian Webster said, I really like the idea of branding it as a recruiting committee. And I was thinking maybe that's sort of really a third goal, is this leadership council really have a recruiting committee. And that really does kind of feed in this, I don't know, maybe it's a triad of, mentoring and, succession planning. You get the recruiting in the middle that then kind of goes out and actively encourages people to actually join and, get involved. The fourth thing when I read his note about the recruiting committee is that if the leadership council could also perhaps take a little bit of an education role and, you know, put out a couple of YouTube videos and that sort of thing about, you know, we just want the average homeowner to know more about the reserve study and, you know, learn what the CC&Rs are. And you know, you'd be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised how many people just go, I didn't get any CC&Rs. Well, yes, you did. And you signed saying that you did, but we all go, no, I'm not going to read the terms and conditions, and we check the box and go. And so, you know, maybe, you know, some set of goals like that within your overall overarching leadership council. Connie, you had something? Still.
All right. Sorry, I forgot where my unmute was. You know, as you're talking, I'm downsizing to practical. How do you make it happen? And the notion of succession planning kind of triggered something for me. We have 14 years in our current homeowner association. There, two of us have 14 years of being president, and succession planning was important to both of us. And so we, between the two of us, sat down and devised how we were going to handle succession planning. I think that you might consider appointing presidents who are leaving. Okay, the president, the secretary, the treasurer, those three critical roles as ex officio members and that's the source for your leadership council, is those ex officio members. Now, they don't have voting rights, but they are special in a way that is recognized as something greater than a committee chair, and turn to them to have them devise a series of things, have them put together a succession planning handbook, ask them to put together the videos on why a reserve study, you know, have them write themselves a charter, you know, but I think you need to give them something to step into to begin with. And there's certainly no reason why the sitting boards for the community, the overall community board, could not appoint those individuals as ex officio members for the Sun City community at large, and give them a preliminary charter with some deliverables to get them started. I thought all of those ideas, you know, the succession planning, the videos on the key things that owners look for, maybe have them host town halls. Anyway, that was my thought.
Cool. Thanks, Connie. David, you had something to add?
Yes, just a couple things, and do keep me grounded in not babbling on. I agree with Connie that they should be ex officio members. The parliamentarian in me would remind the assembly that an ex officio member has all the rights of a member. They can vote, they can debate, they can do all those things. They just don't have to by virtue of their office. That's the level of training from our perspective, and I say that as a parliamentarian. We want to offer that training in less of a rigid way. So NAP has something called In Conversation With. Mr. Norton, I think one of the things that people don't want to do is serve, but they do like to talk. So if there is a community opportunity for said expert in their field to just talk to the association with maybe the vice president as the moderator, get them all together, listen to what's happening with your picked successes or successive persons, I should say. We do the same thing in NAP. There is a succession planning meeting every other March with what the next board may what that may consist and so on. But I wrote down here, in conversation with, develop brain trust with current members, use personal connections, because we've all got it. I mean, you can't teach it. You either can reach out to somebody as a person and they connect with you and you can ask them for things, or would you talk and tell me about this, tell me about that. We've all got that. So we use our personal connections with folks to say, just talk. You don't have to serve, no election, no paperwork. And when people hear that, or the group you assemble hears that, you can go on different topics: parliamentary education, financial planning, reserve studies, how maintenance requests work, all of those things together, a sort of an in conversation with series. That might develop folks further than where they are now, as it's sort of an advanced training, but further, it may interest others, general population in the community. After they hear this talk, they may want to get more involved too. Thank you.
Yeah, Connie, you got something else?
Yeah, just to piggyback, as David was talking, one of the things that I thought of is that we very deliberately, in our board, I talked about the previous president, myself, the president was in between. One of the things that we do is we encourage new board members, your new vice president. Here are the names of the previous vice presidents who are living in the area. Here are the names of the presidents that are previous presidents that are living in the area. Reach out and contact them as your mentors going forward. And that was a tremendous help to me. So the previous president gave me the list of names of the previous presidents who were still living here in the area. And I did that. I contacted them, sat down with them one-on-one, asked them to tell me their worst day and their best day, and if they agree to mentor me. And I relied on them, and we do that. The treasurer reaches out to the previous treasurers, and the secretary reaches out to the previous secretaries. So that's something else that these ex officio advisors could do, is make themselves available to new board members in their respective roles, to help them with the transition.
Oh, good. And we've got a couple of things in the Q&A which are not off topic. They're really related to this as well. But I wanted to take a moment, Katie and Dennis, and just sort of get your input about what you've heard so far, and where you think that'll apply in your organization.
Katie?
I was going to defer to you. I think it's all good information that everyone said so far. A lot of the things, as David had mentioned, some cities already does and has been doing, but always looking for room for improvement. So certainly appreciate everyone's input. And Dennis?
Katie, yeah. David, thank you very much for some of your comments. We feel really good about where we are in terms of structure, and we're very fortunate. The leaders, our staff, as well as the leaders of resident leaders, have done a very good job of setting a foundation. Now, what we have to do going forward is making sure that foundation works for the new set of residents who are moving here, the new set of people with the mindset moving here. So that's I've got some good notes here. I'm sure that Katie, Jim, and I will be talking in the next few weeks. And I feel encouraged, even though I didn't get any exact do this, 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 and this. I feel encouraged with the idea. This is not a dumb idea. It has merit, and I'm just the kind of guy that will keep pounding it away until it becomes a real thing for us.
Well, I think the good thing is that, based on your size of your organization, there's some of that stuff that naturally occurs.
Yeah.
That, as you said, you need to just make sure it's going to work for the existing structure and for the people who are coming on. I know that, I've talked to several communities that talk about, well, we want to have a little welcome committee or whatever. And I know these days you can't go up and knock on people's doors and shake hands and all that and invite them. But, one of my pet peeves is, that there are two communications that most homeowners get as the very first communications from the HOA. And one is, here's your statement for your next assessment. And the next one is, you need to go pick those weeds out of your yard. And then usually if I end up sending an email to somebody, after they've been here for 2 or 3 months, hey, I understand you're new to the community, blah, blah, blah. I can't tell you how many times I get a thing back as, I wish I'd have gotten your email before I got all this other stuff, because I'd have felt a lot more welcome. And so the other thing that I would encourage you to do, which you probably already do, I hope, is make sure that people who come in, not only have a copy of the CC&Rs and all that sort of stuff, but get a nice warm welcome letter from either someone in administration or someone on the board or one of your officers or whatever, and invite them perhaps to a new member discussion, just a discussion. We're not going to teach you about anything. We're not going to bore you with a lot of stuff. We're just going to be there to let you know that we're here for you and answer whatever questions you have because you're new. And I think that begins to set the seed early on with your new members that, I didn't just buy a house here. I bought a home in a community, and hopefully they get that sense anyway. But the more you plant that seed and water it and fertilize it with the appropriate stuff, you'll reap the benefits downstream.
And Dave Norton, you made a comment that I think is real true. And I think we do it here, but I think it has to be done more. People like to be asked to be involved. People like to be asked for their ideas and their thoughts. And you mentioned the fact that some of the key people in your communities you've gotten involved. And I've seen that work where you actually ask somebody, hey, you're really talented. You would really be good doing X, Y, Z. And so I think that personal, if we're community, and if we really stand behind that term community, then you want to reach out. You don't want to just say you volunteer. Well, ask for the sale.
Yeah, and you have to do that gently, as opposed to go out and throw the noose around them. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes you really do just have to ask, and some people will respond. It goes back to the guy's 7 times 7 ways. Some people need to be asked. Other people just want you to sort of dangle out the little piece. And if you have several of those opportunities out there, I think that helps. Let me go through a couple of things that are in the Q&A, and I'm not going to read them all entirely, but one of the suggestions would have an annual thank you event for your volunteers. And if you have an event, I think that not only includes the volunteers, but then also includes other homeowners. Homeowners would then see, oh, I know her. She lives 2 doors down from me and she's volunteering on this. I can do that too. You might actually encourage some participation through that. Training sessions, obviously, that I've touched on already. And the other thing that's pointed out in a couple of areas is, nobody wants to volunteer to immediately be put on a project. And now you've got some deliverables and the board wants to hear from you, a week from Tuesday on what you think. And then one of the other comments was really that a lot of times we create a committee of people to go out and do a particular task, and they come back and they tell the board, here's our recommendation, and the board says, oh no, we're not going to do that. And I think that's not only, as was mentioned here, kind of demotivating, but I know some boards, and probably not your board based on what I've gotten from you so far, but I know some boards that will just say, we're not going to do that, sorry. And that's the end of the discussion. Whereas I probably, like your guys, are a little bit more, here's a couple of reasons why we can't do that. When can we put speed bumps in our community? Well, okay, we talked to the city, blah, blah, blah. And not just no, but we explained why we are really unable to put speed bumps in our community. And that's really because we don't own the streets. And the city says, if you put something down, we're going to come in and rip them up. So, that sort of a thing is to make sure that when you do get recommendations that you are either unable to or unable in a timely manner to actually implement, make sure you communicate with them, and not just thank you for your input, but give some sort of explanation there. I do have, let's see, one more question, really kind of related, I think. but more really from a small community level. When we get a small community and we get a couple of volunteers, the burnout factor is pretty high. There's 4 or 5 people perhaps in a area. This commenter Jane says, we only have 40 units. What can we do to avoid burnout? Kind of transitioning now from the topic itself, then over into some other Q&A. What do you think? Anybody? Dave Norton, you have either a question or a comment? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to comment when somebody closes escrow in any of my communities, the very first message that they receive is from me, and it's not a bill and it's not a violation. I've got some to do this morning that just closed, and they get an email explaining how the gate operates, when the trash collection is, how you pay for that, how you get through the pedestrian gate, when the meetings are. It's multiple pages long, but it's all segregated out and has all the information they need to know. And I send them the link to the website and make sure that they get registered on there. And I do a little hand holding on that. And that has been pretty successful. And I received a lot of thank yous back saying, thank you. I didn't know this about the community before I bought. I'm glad I know it now. And I will say, with all the stuff that's gone on with COVID, the one thing that has really helped is it's forced a lot of people online for meetings just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we are getting more participation from owners than we would ever have in a meeting, because they can meet in their pajamas, and it really doesn't matter. It's very convenient for everybody. They don't have to drive anywhere and all that kind of stuff. And it has been helpful. And the first few times we did that, everyone moaned and groaned, oh, I don't want to mess with a computer. And I've got people that don't know anything about computers. We've held their hand and actually sent someone to their house and said, here's how you do this. And now they're online all the time. And so it's been very helpful to get that involvement that we never would have gotten before, because they're just not going to come out to a meeting. So that also goes back to David's comment that you get the lurkers out, because now you can actually see them, hear them, engage them. And it's been helpful. And now all of our meetings are hybrid. I'll do Zoom. And if a few of us are in person, I'll also run it on Zoom so that people can go either way with it. And it works.
Good. David, Connie, anything to add, or let's talk about the burnout factor. How do we keep from burning out people in smaller communities?
I'll defer to the honorable lady and come in a minute.
Connie, have you got a thought for us? I know you do, because I've seen you on the. Oh, maybe we've lost Connie here for a bit. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, one comment. I think
Dennis.
that what we found is that if you explain to residents why it's important to have residents involved, you really do a good job of explaining that. You show them the value, and you explain to them that you don't have to be the president. You can be a worker bee. But just having a time to volunteer, and it's not a lifelong position. If you explain that to them, I think they can understand that they can do it for a while, and if they have to leave, they can leave, and the process will keep going on. Especially here in our community with the neighborhood leadership, that's been very, very helpful.
Right. I will say one of the things that we did here is I overstaffed our architectural request committee. We call ours the design review committee. And, we've sort of loosely asked for volunteers in the past, but we sort of put out an all call for, we really are looking for people and whatever. And so we had a few more than we actually needed. And I said, well, I'm going to conduct training for all of you, and we'll figure out which two of you will be alternates and kind of sit on the side and be able to have access, but not voting into the committee process. And we already had one lady who then, I've got some medical issues and I'm not going to be able to participate. And one of the other people just moved right into the slot and just kind of fell right into it, as opposed to, oh, we only had 3 and now we're down to 2 and we really should have more people and have to go out and scramble. Have sort of members in waiting, people who are able to participate, but not necessarily vote and that sort of thing. And then the next thing you know, when you thought you could only really afford to have 3 people, now you've got 5 people. In your case, hopefully more. But yeah, that to me is very, very helpful. The other thing that I would say really to the burnout issue, and that is, you have to touch base with your volunteers on a regular basis and sort of ask them, how's it working out for you? I know you're very, very busy, and I know you're busy outside, and I know you're busy here. Are there things that we can do to make your contribution easier so that, you'll continue with us? I think, Dennis, as you mentioned, we don't really want to like grab them in and go, I want you to work 10 hours a week for me now. You take whatever time you can get, but let them know that that's an adjustable commitment, and that if they feel like now I've got issues with family or whatever, and I really do need to take some time off, that, well, okay, that's fine. We'll be in touch with you in another month or 2 and see how you're doing.
I just want to say, this is a different set of circumstances than most organizations. And as community managers, we do a good deal of the work for a board, not to suggest that Mr. Wilson is not up to his elbows and work all the time, but to say that you keep us around so that we can sort of be an underlying support. We have an HOA with about 26 units or so and couldn't get a secretary. So me being me, I said, you know what? I'll do all the work, but I'm not a member. So I need a secretary that is a member of the association. I will do all the work for the first 6 months. I'll show you exactly what I did. I'll time exactly how long it took. I'll train you how to do it myself. And then after 6 months, we'll do it together. And then for the last year of your term, it's on you, unless you need a little help. Once they see it isn't this daunting task, it's not what some of us call the old white hymnal, which my background is preventing you to see, but the Robert's rules you can see behind my friend in Arizona there. Yeah, it's not the old white hymnal. It's 3 pages. Write down what was said, send out all the minutes, make sure people can see them if they want, smile, and sign them. Yeah. That's it. So I think how you alleviate burnout is by a little bit of hand holding, a little bit of training, and just a little bit of gumption, as we say here in North Carolina. And I think that will help a great deal.
I'll point out one of the other obvious facts, and that is, read your CC&Rs, read your bylaws, and see what they say about who can serve. I met sort of surreptitiously one of our owners, and I found out that she was a CPA. And I said, oh, we could use you on the board. And she said, I really don't have the time to commit to be on the board. And I said, well, I tell you what, the elections are coming up. And when we're done, what I'd like for you to do is to be our treasurer. She said, can I do that? I said, yes. Our bylaws say that the president has to be a board member, but the other officers do not actually have to be a board member. And so to be able to kind of look through your bylaws and go, oh, you're a CPA. Would you like to be treasurer for us? Dave Norton's going to do all of the accounting and everything, but we would like to have someone in the HOA who kind of checks up and go, wait a minute, I think you put this in the wrong account. So sometimes, the board has an idea of where things should go, and the management company goes, well, I think it belongs over here, and we just wish it would have been over there, and that sort of thing. An extra pair of eyes. that isn't necessarily a board member. And that way there's not this larger commitment to really, you know, read the packet every time and be able to go into the executive session, all that sort of stuff. They really are there really just to report on the financial condition and those sorts of things.
Right, I just want to say one other thing. Don't let somebody get elected to be president of your board who's using his dad's proxy as his ability to run and hold office. Don't do
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
do read the bylaws.
I have stories about my past here as well. And
Maybe our next session could be war stories from
horror stories. Yeah. And I know that I've helped a number of people, and I'm trying to see here. Yes, one of our attendees is someone that I've helped recently with some board issues. This is a member who's had some board issues, and I've helped them. So I know things that you know, could certainly talk about in terms of you know, things that happen and things that we can do to you know, try and avoid them or help people along those lines. We've hit about the hour mark. I want to go through real quick and make sure that, let's see here. One person said, how do we educate boards to take the work of volunteers more seriously? I mean, I think you guys at Sun City, Texas, you know, seem to be taking this pretty serious. But I know that, and my wife hates it when I do this, and I kind of draw the bell curve. You know, they're boards who are really, really, really on top of everything, and there are boards down here who, you know, like, okay, great, you volunteered, so what? So what we need to do, I think, is find that place in the middle where we can help boards recognize the fact that the volunteers are there voluntarily. A lot of people think that the board members are paid. We need to let them know that we too are volunteers and primarily there for, you know, the community. You know, and I have run into what I refer to primarily as HOA leaders, which to me encompasses both the board and the officers, who are really there to kind of serve their own purpose. They have an agenda and they want to follow things. And there's you know, there's another whole session on how do you deal with a board that really is there for the power struggle. And maybe we'll do that sometime in 2022, but we'll certainly, you know, try and get some additional topics from people. And let's see, one more from Brian, maybe what it comes down to, how to dissuade ignorance on committees and inform ignorance when it's on committees. So, you know, we do have people who volunteer and don't really want to learn how the HOA operates and that sort of thing, and a level of education. And I think from the leadership, monitoring to make sure that everything is, you know, going well and according to plan. And I'll just briefly mention 3 years ago, we actually had a board member who became extremely, and I want to say extremely disruptive in a meeting, a board meeting. And we basically just had to shut the meeting down and go from there. But I called a special meeting 2 weeks later and we removed that person. We can't remove them from the board, but we removed them from their office and we removed them from their 2 committees. And he was just a board member and could not do anything else other than come to a board meeting and participate there. And so there are ways to deal with those sorts of situations that I think over time, you know, we'll attract a large crowd when we have that as a topic, I think, because there are a lot of people out there who just think, you know, board members are, and yes, there's that continuum and there are some like that and we'll want to get there. So, so anybody have any comments that you want to do sort of as a closing thing, and we'll sort of wrap this up? Any questions, further questions or comments?
Well, I'm very pleased. I heard a number of things. I've got some great notes here. So thank all of you for participating in this and sharing your thoughts. I mean, this would be great to do every day, but that's not very practical.
Well, and again, just a quick side note, I will mention that this office hours thing that I sort of got this idea from, they meet every day. I mean, they met Thanksgiving morning at 7 a.m.
Wow.
They're a bunch of diehard guys, but yes, my ultimate goal for those of you that are still here, and I see a couple of people dropping off from the attendees, but my ultimate goal is to do this at least once a month during the week, like on the second Tuesday, and then maybe on a Saturday for those people that can't come, people who have regular jobs but would like to attend, that sort of thing. And then maybe we pick an evening time. And if we had 3 of these a month on various topics, and they're all recorded and live streamed and so forth, then everyone could benefit from the conversations that we have here, which like you've already said, I'm blown away that we really have sort of come up with ideas. Well, I never thought of that. It's really good. I appreciate the conversation. Dave or David or Katie, anything? Jump on in there, Katie.
Just wanted to echo again the thanks for putting this together and for everybody's time and comments on that. And Dennis, thank you for creating the genesis of the question and how we go from here. And I look forward to continued education about it.
Yep.
Excellent. The one other thought that popped into my mind that I wrote a note down here is whatever it is you learn from this and your entire process, I'm sure you will share with other Sun City communities. That to me is, once you learn how to do something and it works out well, sharing it with your other communities to me is top notch.
Sure.
Dave or David?
Thank you very much. I need to bounce back out to my job so that my boss
Great.
doesn't come back here and scream at me.
All right.
I just wanted to say
Thanks, David.
thank you. I'll be back again if I'm invited. And I just want to say I took something away from it, which is now Wilson's Law for Involvement, which is the letters TON.
Thank you.
Training, orientation, and mentoring. So you've created something here, Mr. Vice President, I think we can all use. So thank you, folks. I'll see you again soon, I hope.
All right.
Great. Thanks, David. Dave Norton, anything else?
No, I'm done for the moment, and I think it was well worthwhile. I was going to ask when's the next one, but you've already kind of covered that, so I'm sure
I think I'm going to try and hit the second Tuesday in January, and then I'll try and hit like the third Saturday as well. And usually I try and hit around the 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Dave being in Arizona with me, which is not too early for California at 9 a.m. and not too late for the East Coast at noon. So we'll see if we can do that again and go from there.
Well, again, to you on that date, I'll be in rare form because I'm having foot surgery the day before. So
yeah, we'll get some of your best input from that.
I'll be real coherent that day.
Nice, good. Okay, well, good luck with that.
Yep.
Katie and Dennis, thank you for your participation. For all of the attendees out there, especially some names that I recognize, thank you for attending. And you'll be on the mail out list for the next session.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks a lot.